Greetings, my name is Reverend Josphat Shichende, the lead pastor of CITAM Ngong in Kenya. I want to begin by welcoming you to the message of today. But before I continue, I want you to subscribe to our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, have I forgotten, and our YouTube at CITAM Ngong. Thank you. Welcome so much. Karibu, as we say it in Kenya. Now, when I mention the word desperation, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Does the threat of coronavirus come to your mind? Does shopping, people rushing to the market to buy stuff and putting them in their house come to mind? Does the issue of being quarantined come to mind? What comes to mind when you think of the word desperation? Now, desperation can be defined as having an urgent need or desire, and it is a powerful emotion caused by an event or a crisis. Our text this morning was actually taken from Psalms 91. I know we are all familiar with Psalms 91. Let me just read a snippet of it. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. When I think of this word, actually, the word desperation, what really comes to mind? Well, the psalmist surely in this verse wants us to know something. What does he want us to know about God's protection? Because this psalm is about knowing God and the advantages of the benefit of the protections we have in Him. Actually, the author wants us to know that because the Lord is his God, He protects him. And therefore, if God will also be our God, then God will protect us. According to Dr. Paul Manuel, a Bible expositor and pastor, he says this about the Psalm 91 rather. He says this about Psalms 91. He says, God's protection is exclusive, God's protection is extensive, God's protection is extraordinary, and God's protection is expansive. Let me just explore a bit each of those. Number one, God's protection is exclusive. What does that mean? It means that it benefits those who dwell in Him. It's not for everybody, no. Twice the psalmist would indicate that it is exclusive in verse 1 and in verse 9. He says, He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High. In verse 10 he says, if you make, it is very exclusive. The implication is that it is not for everyone. It's for those who purpose to have a personal, intimate relationship with God. Those are the people who experience God's protection. And my question to you is, do you have a close, intimate, personal relationship with God? Do you have a deep attachment to God? If you do, then you can experience God's exclusive protection. Secondly, God's protection is extensive. It covers more than one can imagine. In verses 3 to 4, he compares God's protection to a mother bird. The protection that the mother bird offers its young. In verses 4 to 6, he compares God's protection to a shield that a soldier has and the protection he gets from it. But what is important about this psalm is that if you read it and examine it in detail, you will discover that a bird cannot offer enough protection, and neither can a shield offer enough protection from pestilences. You see, pestilences or contagious disease cannot be held back by a shield, or and the little young birds cannot be protected by its mother from contagious diseases. The only person who can protect us is God. And what the psalmist is saying is that as much as the birds can not offer protection to its young, or a shield cannot offer complete protection to a soldier, God instead offers more than enough protection than a shield or a bird can offer. He is able to overcome impossible situations and offers us complete protection. His protection is extensive. Thirdly, God's protection is extraordinary. It possesses a supernatural element. He says in the word, in verse 11 and 12, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all his ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Listen, he appointed angels to watch over the Israelites when they were in Egypt, when the avenger of blood, when the Passover was happening and the Egyptian children were killed. But because of the marking on the door, the angels protected the children of Israel from death. The angels also protected Isaac from Abraham when Abraham was about to sacrifice him to God. The angels also protected Elisha when the Armenian army tried to capture him. We read more and more protection from the angels of God, even in cases of Daniel and even in the cases of Daniel's friends. What is God really saying in these verses? He is saying that no matter how big the issue is, God's extraordinary angelic beings will offer you extraordinary protection. Now, having said that, then the question that we need to ask is that if I try to tempt God, or if I take myself into a situation where I'm tempting God, will I still experience God's extraordinary protection as a child of God? The answer is no. If you engaged in testing God or in a behavior that is contrary to dwelling with God, then you will not experience the protection of God. You will forfeit it. We are called to live and abide in God so that we experience that protection. Having said that, we come to verse 8, actually 15 to 16, and God now is the one speaking. Initially, it is the writer to the Psalm 91 that has been speaking. But in this case, God takes over and he says, because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. God literally is saying that what the writer to the Psalm has been saying is true. But this is now a promise from God. He says that he will call upon me and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him. I will honor him with long life. I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. What we see here is that God's protection is expansive. It includes fringe benefits. That means, number one, that God will answer when a believer calls on him. God is actually waiting to hear your prayers so that he answers you. Secondly, it means that he will be with you or with the believer when the believer is in trouble. Thirdly, he talks about he will deliver the believer and honor you. Remember the case of Daniel. His colleagues engineered and ensured that he was thrown into the den of lions, hoping that he will be killed so that they will take his position. But God sent his angels and God protected him from the lions. And the next morning the king came to the well where the den was with lions and discovered Daniel was still there because God had sent his angel. In this case, he was brought out and was actually honored, and his God was honored. But his friends who engineered this were thrown in and they were killed. God's protection and deliverance is accompanied with honor, so long as we abide in him. And finally, he will satisfy the believer with long life and show him his salvation. These are the promises of God, so long as we abide in him, because in him is long life. And so as I conclude my message, this is my takeaway. This is what I want you to take away. That whatever your crisis, I want you to remember that God's protection is exclusive for his children. If you're his child, you can enjoy this. Secondly, his protection is extensive. If you're his child, you can experience this extensive protection. You don't need to live in fear. Thirdly, his protection is extraordinary. God's angels are watching over your life. And finally, his protection is expansive. It comes with fringe benefits. You can trust God. He will protect you. All these promises of protection that God makes to his people are the provision he makes for them so that they can experience life and have it in abundance. God bless you. Please do not forget to subscribe. God bless you for listening in. Bye-bye.